Hey, welcome to World Code Updates. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. The BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting Philippine ship grounded on the Second Thomas Shoal, is more than a vessel. It's a symbol of sovereignty. Today, its crew needs food and water, but Chinese Coast Guard ships, massive and modern, form a wall of intimidation. The Filipino crew's mission is simple, but the stakes are high. Chinese ships blare horns and cut across the path of Philippine supply boats, firing high-pressure water cannons. This is not open war, but every supply run is a test of will, a dangerous dance of diplomacy and defiance. The world watches through grainy videos, seeing the stark power imbalance. These standoffs are the front line of a modern conflict, fought with maritime law and nerve, not missiles. Filipino sailors deliver more than supplies. They deliver a message. This is our water. China's response is equally clear. They claim these waters as their own and are willing to enforce it. Each incident raises the temperature, and the path from standoff to armed exchange is frighteningly short. For the Philippines, it's about more than a shoal. It's about national identity and the future. The courage of these sailors reflects a larger question. Can the Philippines stand alone against a rising superpower? The world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher. The Philippines and China share a long, complex history, centuries of trade, migration, and cultural exchange. Ancient ties once meant peaceful cooperation, but today, the relationship is fraught with new tensions. China is now a global power, and its actions in the South China Sea have created deep anxiety in Manila. Economic cooperation and strategic competition now coexist uneasily. China funds Philippine infrastructure and is a top trading partner, but this economic embrace comes with strings attached. Philippine leaders must balance the promise of growth with the fear of political leverage. Some leaders seek closer ties with Beijing, others push back and strengthen alliances with the US. The nation is divided on how to handle its powerful neighbor. The relationship is a mix of deep-rooted friendship and modern-day friction. Cooperation and conflict are now inseparable. The Philippines must navigate this complex dance every day. The heart of the conflict is the resource-rich South China Sea, known in Manila as the West Philippine Sea. For Filipinos, these waters are vital for food, livelihoods, and future energy. The Philippine Constitution and international law support their claim. China, however, claims almost the entire sea, marked by its sweeping 9-dash line. To enforce this, Beijing has built artificial islands and military bases, changing the facts on the water. In 2016, the Philippines won a landmark legal victory at The Hague, which invalidated China's claims. But China rejected the ruling and intensified its activities. Filipino fishermen face harassment, and Philippine outposts are blockaded. The Philippines holds a legal victory, but lacks the power to enforce it. The line in the water is now a line between international law and raw power. The struggle is not just territorial. It's about the rules that govern the region. The world is watching to see which prevails. The conflict isn't just about ships, it's about economics. China is a top trading partner and a major investor in Philippine infrastructure. This relationship fuels growth but creates dangerous dependencies. If tensions escalate, China could restrict imports or tourism, hurting Filipino farmers and businesses. Beijing has used economic pressure before, making Philippine leaders cautious. Belt and road projects promise development but raise fears of debt traps and loss of strategic assets. The economic benefits are real, but the risks are immense. The Philippines faces a dilemma: how to stand up to China without devastating its own economy. Any strategy must consider the economic fallout. The battle for sovereignty is also a battle for economic independence. Manila's options are limited by these deep economic ties. On paper, a military conflict between the Philippines and China is a hopeless mismatch. China's PLA is massive and technologically advanced, with aircraft carriers, submarines, and a vast missile arsenal. The Philippine military is smaller, focused for decades on internal threats, and lacks modern warships, submarines, and advanced air defenses. A direct, conventional war would almost certainly end in swift defeat for the Philippines. China's military budget dwarfs Manila's, translating into overwhelming technological superiority. Anti-access and area denial systems make the South China Sea even more dangerous for Philippine forces. The numbers and hardware are simply not in the Philippines' favor. A head-to-head fight is not a viable strategy. The Philippines cannot hope to sink the Chinese fleet or achieve air superiority. The reality forces Manila to think differently about what it means to fight and to win. Survival depends on strategy, not strength. The challenge is to find another way. If a conventional war is unwinnable, the Philippines must turn to asymmetric warfare. This means using unconventional tactics to exploit China's vulnerabilities. The Philippines' geography, over 7,000 islands, makes occupation a nightmare for any invader. Every island could become a fortress, every coastline a trap. The local population, with deep knowledge of the terrain, could support a protracted resistance. Swarms of small, fast attack boats, sea mines, and hit-and-run tactics could harass larger Chinese warships. Cyber attacks and drones could disrupt Chinese operations. The most important weapon, however, is the Filipino people. A Chinese invasion would likely unite the nation in fierce resistance. Civil disobedience, sabotage, and insurgency would make occupation costly. China would have to commit massive resources just to maintain control. The price could be too high for Beijing to pay. Asymmetric warfare is the Philippines' best hope. The path to conflict isn't a straight line, it's a spectrum. The most likely scenario is a gray zone conflict, harassment, economic pressure, and cyber attacks that stop short of war. China aims to achieve its goals incrementally, avoiding a major military response. The Philippines must push back without triggering escalation. A limited clash could erupt from an accident or miscalculation. One shot, one collision, and tensions could explode. China might deliver a swift, punishing blow to reassert dominance. A full-scale invasion is unlikely but not impossible if China feels its core interests are threatened. In any scenario, the Philippines' strategy is to make conflict as costly as possible for China, militarily, politically, and economically. International condemnation and diplomatic pressure would be key weapons. The fight would play out not just at sea, but on the world stage. The US-Philippine alliance is a cornerstone of Manila's defense, but what if the Philippines must stand alone? The Mutual Defense Treaty offers protection, but US intervention is never guaranteed. Political shifts or clever Chinese tactics could leave the Philippines isolated. In that case, Manila would have to rely entirely on its own resources and resolve. Asymmetric defense would become the only option: anti-ship missiles, sea mines, and a citizen army. National mobilization would be essential, with a focus on food and energy security. The entire country would need to be on a war footing. Diplomacy would remain crucial, rallying support at the UN, ASEAN, and other forums. The Philippines would frame the conflict as a fight for the rules-based order. By highlighting its adherence to international law, Manila could isolate Beijing politically. Sanctions and global pressure could impose real costs on China. Standing alone would test the nation's spirit and strategy. Can the Philippines defeat China alone? Not in a conventional war. The disparity is too great. But if victory means making occupation unsustainable for Beijing, the answer is a defiant maybe. Through asymmetric warfare and national unity, the Philippines could become a poisonous shrimp for the Chinese dragon. The real battle would be for the hearts and minds of Filipinos. History shows smaller nations can resist powerful invaders through sheer will. The national spirit is the Philippines' ultimate weapon. This is not just a military test, it's a test of character. A conflict would bring suffering, but also a defining moment of unity and courage. Diplomacy and alliances remain vital, but belief in resistance is itself a deterrent. In the end, the human spirit can be the most formidable force of all.